State of the Juju Charm Store. I am George Castro, and I'll be leading this session here with Marco Ceppi. Say hi and stuff.
Hey, everybody.
And we had agreed to wear hipster hats, but then Marco bailed on me, so only I wear the hipster hat today. So this is a session that we run every Ubuntu Developer Summit, every Ubuntu Online Summit, I guess is what we're going to call it from now on. And it's kind of, we want to go over the state of the charms that are available for people to deploy services on Ubuntu, and we want to kind of go through the statuses of the automated testing, the tools, and all the stuff that you, I don't want to say junk, all the stuff that you have to do to put stuff in the Juju Charm Store. So while this isn't really the state of Juju itself or the state of Juju GUI, since the store where people are deploying, it kind of is the state of the things that you can deploy easily with Juju. And we just happen to call that Charm Store. Oh, and it looks like both Matt and James Page have joined us. If you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick.
I'm Matt Bruzek. I'm a Juju charmer. Very interested in the Charm Store.
Hey, I'm James Page. I'm to lead on the Ubuntu server team. I'm author of a few charms and reviewer for the occasional.
Okay, excellent. Your audio is kind of breaking in and out. I don't know if it's your microphone or whatever. But James, is it fair to say, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it, that you're probably one of the leads on the OpenStack charms?
I think that's a fair comment, yes.
Yeah. So do we want to start there with the OpenStack charms? Because I think a lot of people are using Juju to deploy OpenStack. And I know that we have cool Icehouse stuff with Trusty. I know that we support things in Precise. I know that the stuff that gets added to the OpenStack charms continues to grow. And OpenStack itself is so huge and confusing, I have no idea what's going on. So yeah, maybe just give us an update. You know, start with 1404,
okay,
and then take us back.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So with 1404, we introduced OpenStack Icehouse. But we also introduced it for 1204 via the Ubuntu Cloud Archive. So we're in a kind of interesting position in that the charms we have in the Charm Store have to support both 1204 deployments and 1404 deployments of the same versions of OpenStack. So what we end up doing is we end up having...
Wait, can I interrupt you there 1 second? Do you have a headset by any chance?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it's just a bit hard to understand you. Why don't we come back to James then while he sets up there?
Is that any better?
Oh, that's a lot better. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, actually, the mic was under the piece of paper, so that's probably why it wasn't working so well.
Okay. So go ahead and start over.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So 1404 Icehouse. Icehouse also on 1204. So our charms support all sorts of different versions of OpenStack on 1204 and 1404. And they coincidentally also support all the Ubuntu releases between those two as well, which is quite exciting. So for all of the charms we have in Charm Store, we have Trusty and Precise versions. They are exactly the same charm. They just do conditional stuff based on what you're deploying to and what you're trying to deploy. But broadly, we've got pretty good coverage of all of the core OpenStack projects. I think the only one we haven't got, which was integrated last cycle, is Trove, which is the database as a service stuff. But I think we'll probably aim to get that done this cycle, to be honest. So that's our gap right now. I guess the challenges we had, I mean, what session is State of the Juju Charm Store? Yeah, excellent. So one thing we had is I would love to manage a single branch and not have to push to 2 places, but you know, that's just mechanics more than anything else. It's not the end of the world. But what we have done since we released the 1404 charm updates is we've introduced a stable charm policy for our charms. So basically, we're trying to limit the amount of change going into the Charm Store charms for OpenStack during a development cycle. We had quite a lot of significant change going in kind of mid-cycle last time, and it was quite hard to manage. So we're pushing a stable policy onto the charm store charms, and we're working against like a next branch form of our new features and any other bug fixes coming in, and then we're just cherry picking for the main charm store charm, and we'll do a full kind of regression test cycle towards the end of the Ubuntu dev cycle prior to 14.10 release. So it will include the Juno updates and whatever other features we've delivered in our charms along that period.
Okay, so I have some questions about the stable policy because I read that and I was like, ooh, I want this for the entire charm store, even though it might not make sense for all charms. So I actually wanted to bring this up as a kind of a discussion for everyone because I know James Troop has asked. He's actually said before, you know, I know charms don't have an SRU policy, therefore it frightens me every time I have to do something. Whereas, you know, Ubuntu's SRU policy is well defined. Everyone understands it, and you know exactly what you're getting into when you're getting an upgrade. So from a charmer's perspective, I would very much like to take the OpenStack charm SRU policy and kind of use that to learn a lot of lessons, to see where we can apply that to the general charm store, right?
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really nice idea. I mean, we're generally the stable policy is somewhat modelled on the Ubuntu SRU policy in terms of you want to hotfix something into the stable branch, then you have to have a bug, you have to have a test case to reproduce it, you have to, you know, minimal impact change and stuff like that as well. So I broadly modelled it on that. So if it kind of works for people, then it'd be nice to see that adopted. I think it becomes more important as Charm and Juju become more popular because people do rely on them, and if you upgrade your Juju Charm and it breaks everything, that's not great. So.
Right, exactly. Whereas certain charms, however, you would expect charms that either are for a very new service or something that isn't production ready, right? Like if something, right? If I had a charm that was using Docker to do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, then you know we also have the flexibility to allow those things in the charm store, right? Versus.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be quite nice if charms kind of said how they were going to behave. So, the authors of charms, said how they were going to behave. I mean, I think you're entirely right that for some things you do want to have that regular stream of change coming in, especially for new charms. If they're not particularly feature rich when they first enter the store, they're going to want to grow rapidly. But the OpenStack charms have been around for like 2.5 years now, at least. So they're some of our earliest charms. So, and we have got like deployments of OpenStack on 1204 and Essex, which technically we still support. So
with your old charms?
with the two current charms still support Essex, believe it or not. So yeah, so it's hard. Yeah, I think it'd be a cool idea. I mean, the other thing we're trying to do with the OpenStack charms is testing. So we're trying to implement amulet tests for everything, so that when we change something, we can actually do that regression test effectively against all the various different versions of OpenStack we have to support, because at the moment it's a bit manual.
Yeah.
That kind of supports our whole stable policy as
well. Right. And then if you, I think though, also, I think one thing we can learn right away that we can immediately start encouraging people is make it clear for their charms what the support policy is, which is what you've done, right? You say, hey, this WordPress is gonna install the latest version and it's gonna upgrade WIMs, right? At least you know that, right?
Yeah.
Stack charms, and then, but there's certainly some things that I want to steal from you in order to apply that as policy across the charm store. But I'm gonna wait to see what mistakes you make and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah. So and then Marco hints that he thinks that the charm store will have the concept of stable and dev charms in the nearest future.
We kind of have some crumbs of that already with personal branches versus what's been hacked into the store, since both are listed.
Right.
9 times out of 10, I'm going to choose the store branch over anything that's in a personal branch to deploy.
Yeah. This was something we were talking about in the earlier session today about how we expose our kind of next branches effectively via the store. Because I think at the moment the store will only import a single branch for a series per user or team, but our stable and next branches are both owned by the same owner, so we only get one of them. So having the ability to kind of expose our dev and our stable via the charm store I think will help with testing, especially because not everybody you can't drop bizarre branches into Juju to start off with, which seems to become more popular these days. So I think the ability to expose those things, and if that's coming along, that's great.
Yeah. My only concern is that stable and dev the discussion really kind of evolves into the issues that we had with series, right? Are those under the charm level or across the store level? So.
Well, I think your point, James, is valid. Like, right now, only branches that end in /trunk get picked up for the store. So it'd be nice to be able to say, like, here is a unique feature branch, so you can get a CS full URL. But no, I could definitely see that as being something that would be useful, especially for the OpenStack case, where you have this idea of dev and stable charms.
Mm. And we often have sets of change across charms being developed under kind of pocket branches. So I'm doing some work on adding kind of network split support to the OpenStack charms, and that will be a set of branches that land into Next at some point in time. But being able to expose a kind of set of features, a feature across a set of charms, would be also a really neat way. If the charm store could support that, that would be.
The nice thing is your set of charms is probably going to end up always being the most complicated, if not in the top 5. So I think solving it for you, I think we get long tail benefits. Yeah.
Cool.
So you did mention the Cloud Archive. If someone can stick that URL in the IRC channel for our users. Okay, so that covered 1404. Did you cover? Sorry, I forgot. I was paying attention to the other part. Did you cover on Precise with Icehouse?
Yeah. So Precise is Icehouse is also supported on Precise.
Right.
It's our last OpenStack support release for 12.04, and it will go through to the end of the 12.04 support period. So it's under 3 years now. Alongside Icehouse on 14.04, and the idea is this gives people a bit of an upgrade path. So they've got existing cloud deployments on 12.04, they can bump those through to Icehouse, and they can start deploying 14.04 alongside that. So kind of all the core cloud technologies like OpenVSwitch and Invert and QEMU are all aligned, and you can start life cycling your cloud onto the 14.04 for the longer 5-year support from there.
So if I want Icehouse but I'm a 12.04 shop, I could start there and then I have a way up, right?
Yep, if you're already running 12.04, and a lot of people will be running Havana or Grizzly or whatever, then they can bump to Icehouse without having to upgrade 14.04.
Now, do we recommend people upgrading the OS first, or is it just kind of once?
I think most anybody with clouds in production are probably not going to upgrade 12.04 to 14.04. That's quite an exciting thing to do in a running cloud. I think they're more likely to introduce either new regions or extra compute capacity on 14.04 alongside 12.04, and then do migrations and lifecycle manage it that way.
Okay, so people don't disupgrade entire clouds, right? They just add new.
Only exceptionally brave or foolhardy people probably do that.
Just out of curiosity, do we support that?
Well, the packaging will support going from 12.04 with the Icehouse Cloud Archive to 14.04. Yeah, technically. It's not no downtime, so for a lot of clouds that's not an option. So.
Right. But we can do live migrations and all that stuff with Landscape.
Absolutely.
But I think, when it comes to the services that run on top, sure, you're disposable and throwing things away and stuff, but infrastructure underneath has to be planned, right? I don't think anyone wakes up and says, "Hey, we're moving to Icehouse today," without a plan, right?
Yeah. Like I said, only very foolhardy people, like yourself. We tend to just throw away our clouds and start again.
Except for Marco, that's what Marco. Okay, so I think that pretty much. Do we have any questions on the OpenStack charms? Sparky Geek wants to point out that you use the word lifecycle as a verb, James.
Christ. Okay, sorry.
Well done. All right, cool. So I guess you'll just hang out and then complain about the quality of the rest of the charms that are not maintained by you.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we can go over those there. I want to talk a little bit about the big data ones. So this will make James. This is semi-related to you. This is Amir Sanjar is working on an entire big data stack set of charms, starting with Hadoop 2.4, and then from there tracking upstream releases. Now, when I say Hadoop 2.4, I mean all the components of Hadoop, just like OpenStack isn't a thing, right? It's a collection of things. So he looked at your old charms, kind of learned from that, and so this new set of charms is going to be totally from scratch.
I think that's a good approach.
Yes, written with more modern. Well, those charms are old, right? They were written when we didn't have charm tools.
Well, they predate even being able to query relations from hook environments. So if you remember those days, like 3 years ago,
yeah,
so long ago now.
Yeah. So and it's also really good because he's really an expert with Hadoop, so he was able to find places right away where you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot and stuff. But that is a good way for us to like kind of those charms did their purpose. They're still usable today. We could still deploy clusters of Hadoop 1.x faster than anybody else, as far as I can tell, and that's great. We just need to move that to 2.x and beyond. And he's also working on a Spark charm, which I hope to demo this Friday at the Texas Linux Fest, which is something that people are talking about. And that leaves, let's see, I am still trying to talk to Cassandra about having them do a peer review of the Cassandra charm. Had some calls with the Oracle fellas as far as supporting the latest MySQL features in the charm. Marco, they gave you a bunch of feedback on the charm. Can you kind of talk about what's coming in the new MySQL charm? I know this is our most deployed charm by a large margin, and I think it's important that we kind of explain to people what you've been doing it for the past few weeks.
Yeah, so the guys over at Oracle that do the management around MySQL went ahead and reviewed the charm we have now. They really liked what we were doing with it, and they had some pointers for things that we can improve, and then they also gave us a whole bunch of resources that will help us grow the charm. So in the coming releases of the MySQL charm, you'll be able to not only install the current version of MySQL default in Trusty and Precise, which in Trusty it's 5.5. You'll also be able to install what's in the archives for 5.6. You'll be able to install MySQL from the direct, brand new, like released last week, Oracle Debian repos. And they have both 5.6 in there and 5.7. So depending on what version you choose, you can switch between MySQL 5, whichever 5 releases out, either on Oracle side or from the Ubuntu archives. There's also a whole bunch of really cool management tools that they have, as well as testing tools that will be in the charm as well to do just to do better optimization for the charm based on users' requests. And we've trimmed down some of the configuration options and simplified them. They said some of the things we were doing were a little off and different than what you'd want to do for the latest versions of MySQL for tuning. So they gave us some performance help and some performance feedback as well. We'll also be rewriting a lot of the charm. It'll be unit tested as well, so it'll be a better coverage of testing, so contributions can be verified. They don't really break any existing functionality. It'll require a little less overhead review as well. So that'll be coming in the next week or two for those changes in MySQL.
Excellent. And when do you expect to land those? Because I need them badly.
I'm still working on the last features and testing and compatibility testing to make sure I don't break anything in the existing charm when I rewrote stuff. But I hope to have a preliminary out by the end of this week for people to play with, and then hopefully have a merge request for the store by the end of next week.
Okay, excellent. And there was one last thing, that cluster management tool that they just...
yes, Fabric, I think it's called.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit, or have you not?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I haven't dove much into it. I plan on looking at it to do master cluster-based management stuff within the charm itself, which was previously not really available in past versions of MySQL. So actually doing like what we do with Mongo and Postgres and other charms, where you just scale MySQL and you get replication. Right. So that'll be looking to add that in there. I'm not sure how well that'll drop into the charm yet. I've only done some preliminary investigation. in the fabric.
Sure, sure. But certainly some exciting tools there, and we'd like to see if anybody's playing with this and wants to help us add this in the MySQL charm. That would be great, and the MySQL guys will be, of course, available to help anybody who's willing to do that work. On the other things related to MySQL front, I do have a prototype of a MariaDB charm, but it is very primitive, very 5.5 only, and I'm looking for anyone who helped to bring the latest stuff that the Maria guys are working on to that charm. So I have that charm in my personal space. It's a fork of the older MySQL charm, so it certainly works and stuff, but we'd certainly like to see somebody who's using MariaDB on a day-to-day basis on Ubuntu to help drive that forward instead of just being a fork of some old charm that nobody cares about anymore because Marco rewrote it. So that's good. I would like to talk a little bit about testing. I know, Marco, this will make you quit the Hangout. Can we talk a little bit about what the status is as far as charms that have tests, how the audit is going? I'll go ahead and look through that, although I don't think we're making a lot of progress on the audit. So testing, like when, let's say I were to accidentally break a charm, when do red lights and stuff go off and whatnot?
So, no, it's a great question. We've been talking about testing for, a long time now. It's been one of those long to do, outstanding for the charm universe, and we got pretty close last cycle. We built some tools to help with it. We got some demonstrations and prototypes of automated charm testing. We ran into a few logistical issues with that. We're kind of refocusing on what testing means. So I'll give you a view of the universe now, which is not really indicative of what we've been doing these last couple of months. So I think we have a grand total of 25 charms with tests in them, not including the OpenStack ones. Those guys, you guys have your own set of testing suites, unit testing at a minimum for most of them. So these are just charms outside of the personal charm groups. That's the Juju GUI. They have their own stuff. OpenStack charmers maintain their own. This is just in the main charm store, charm store. 25 of them have tests. Most all of them are passing those tests, though our automated framework stuff isn't actually hooked up at the moment. So still the review process is a very manual review process. It's also very time consuming. The review queue as a result is kind of backed up. So apologies for anyone waiting for reviews. We will get to them. This upcoming one, there's a proposal that's being drafted for how to really do charm testing going forward. We're going to have that mailed out to the list probably by the end of the week at the latest for feedback, and then we're going to really hit hard as soon as possible to make that a reality. Hopefully getting some semblance of automated charm testing up in the next week or two, and then really going in and going back in through the audit process and really making sure that our charms have really good coverage so that we can ensure that they are working still currently. And then if they are getting updates to them, those updates don't break any sort of current deployment compatibility, so we can know quicker and sooner and make these charm reviews turn around a lot faster. So it's still a bit of a burden, and we're working very hard to make sure that charm testing is a success for our store.
Yes, and people, if you're looking for a good way to get started in a charm, adding tests is good, and you can always talk to Marco, Matt, or Charles about getting your tests. So much hand-waving, many excuses, but we're working on it. Is that the TLDR for you? There. I'd also like to spend some time talking about Elasticsearch real quick. I know we have an Elastic charm in the store, an Elasticsearch charm in the store. This was contributed by Paul Czar at Rackspace, who won the contest with the entire stack, ELK they call it, Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. And the Canonical Web Ops team have been deploying more and more Elasticsearch in production and found a way to reuse the Ansible cookbooks with charms. In fact, there's going to be a whole session about how to use Ansible with Juju. Ends up it's a really, really great 1-2 combination. So now we have an Ansible-based charm that we would very much like to promote into the store. Chuck, I know you looked at it. Do we have any? What's the TLDR on this charm here? Because I would also like to demo this soon.
I've worked through it. It looks like the Elasticsearch service itself that's being deployed is great, but there are supporting services that need to be upgraded along with it, and I have works in progress to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm more concerned with is making sure that the entire stack, that once we upgrade the single component, doesn't fall apart.
Okay.
And that's going to require some effort on our end to make sure that those get upgraded as well, or if a community member would like to step forward and say, hey, I can upgrade, Logstash Indexer to the latest 2.4x, and we can go from there.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of where we're at with that. We're looking at maybe 4 or 5 days worth of work to get everything together and tested, and then we can move forward with the new Elasticsearch charm.
Okay. And did you sort out I think it was Logstash that you were installing the jar, not the tarball, or the other way around? It's
100% a version mismatch.
Okay.
The existing stack that we have bundles a particular version that mismatches what we have upstream. There's a workaround, but it's not. I don't want to tell people to use a workaround because we upgraded on it. So
moving forward, is Elasticsearch publishing jars anymore, or are they just tarballs from now on?
all tarballs. They stopped doing the flat jar method.
Okay. All right. What does that mean support-wise? Does that mean?
That's a good question. What exactly are you asking me? Are they still supporting the older version?
Oh, no, I'm just wondering. Like, does that mean that the charm has to do a bunch of Java dependency stuff now, or?
Actually, no. They're still shipping the dependencies. The delivery mechanism has changed, and that's
okay. So a tarball. Okay.
Right.
So when you said jars, just like they just changed the format of the archive. They're not changing what they're shipping.
Right. It's no longer a flat jar file with a single CRC. You now have a tarball with a CRC that packages all of the JRuby components and whatnot that go into it.
Okay, got it. And do we know if they have a PPA or Debian packages? Just out of curiosity.
They just have a tarball. I did not look for a Debian package yet, but I'm pretty sure that one exists. So.
Right. Okay, and it doesn't matter anyway. The charm kind of hides all that, so we'll just use the tarballs, and you don't need Debian packages anymore, right, James Page? Look at this world that we've created for you.
You're making me quit now, aren't you?
At the end of the day, every store will re-implement Debian packaging poorly.
Well, a tar file is just like a Debian package.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So that'll be interesting to see how that moves forward, because I certainly think as projects start to add repositories and things, we just switch the charm on the back end, test it, and then users don't. Well, no, hopefully, but it won't break on them. So that's really good moving forward. We have some new charms coming into the store this week. Is there any charm that have caught your guys' eye? Because I saw Review Board is back. Someone went ahead and resubmitted Review Board. That's the code review software. I believe originally by the VMware guys. I haven't followed it in a while, but I know people love it. Are there any charms that you guys see in the queue that we should talk about that look interesting?
There was one that just got pushed yesterday, which was interesting to me. It's a competitor to OwnCloud called Cfile, which gives you personal storage space that you can deploy to the cloud.
Interesting. And is that in the store now, or?
That is in the store now. That was promulgated as of last night.
Oh, so that's okay. So that's what you reviewed last night. I've heard a lot of good things about Cfile. Martin Stadler told me that they were insanely smart guys. So that's certainly an option. In fact, we should blog about this one today. So yeah, that's jujucharms.com/precise/cfile should give you there, and then it has a very nice README. Very well done there. I will have that. Check it out. Jose says he's looked at he's done a quick review on Review Board, and it looks good to him so far. So that will be interesting. Are there any other charms? Let's see in the queue. There's Hadoop 2.2. After spending some time in the charm, I don't know if you're going to get a chance to review that this week or not, Chuck. But after that, I'm sure he'll be bumping it to 2.4.
Yeah, actually, that's on my my weekly duty before the end of the week. So.
Okay. Looks like Storm is finally going to get its first review. The Cisco N1KV VXLAN Gateway. Have any of you guys actually played with this thing? I'm hoping James Page will. Oh, I knew he would. But they've been submitting a lot of fixes to it. So.
Yeah, I've done a cycle of reviews. I know Charles has been involved and various other people as well. So it's, if I say, complex.
Okay.
So.
Okay. More Jenkins slave fixes. This actually reminds me. Did we sort out the Jenkins charm issues as far as trusty?
Yeah, has anybody taken ownership of the Jenkins charm? I know it's got my name on it at the moment, but I don't know if anybody else has done any work on it.
I know some people who could probably take over ownership of it. I thought the Juju Q18 was taking over ownership for Jenkins because they used that charm, or they use a version of it at least. Yeah. We should talk to Curtis and them, see if they want it.
Yeah. All right, let's chase that down with Curtis today, Marco.
Let's just give it to them. They now have it.
Yeah, well, you should tell them that though.
Well, I'll tell them that. They should be watching.
The stuff maintainership doesn't really work. I already tried that. Yeah, for those of you not aware, Jenkins is no longer available in the archive because it's moving fast. So we're gonna try to do a cool charm thing there where you've got your little channels and then you can change to each one and it'll upgrade and then all your plugins will break and then it'll be awesome. Trust me. I think this is a Jose's thing here, adding SSL support to OwnCloud. I know a lot of users have been asking for that, so that's good. Ooh, a media wiki fix. Haven't seen that. Someone's finally submitted Cake PHP. It's a PHP framework. I know I haven't been spending a lot of time looking at PHP frameworks, but we certainly should to get that stuff up there. Import.io is also incoming. That should be interesting to people. As well as Apache Allura, which I admit I have no idea what that is. Does anybody know what that is?
It's like Software Forge is what Allura is. It's
that's the thing Corey was working on. That's right. Okay. That's good. It never hurts to have stuff like that. Someone has submitted Piwik integration to WordPress, Marco. I know you still want to rewrite that charm, so you might want to get on that. We've got the Dell Open Managed Server Administration Tools, OMSA. Those are currently in the queue. That's pretty cool software that you can deploy to manage your Dell servers. I admittedly have not used OMSA in a really long time, so I can't really tell you what's in there, other than it's coming. More fixes for PG Badger. Always tons of Postgres fixes coming into that charm. I know that we fully support all the upstream repositories and whatnot. I believe how many versions of Postgres is Stub supporting in that charm now? I think it's 4.
I think it's 9. I think he supports 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3.
Yeah. Okay. So 3. That's pretty cool. And it does clustering and stuff. It's sweet. There's Elasticsearch. More fixes for Ceph as always. Tons and tons of always OpenStack fixes from you guys. James, you guys are killing it. And finishing it off with Review Board, which Jose, with his initial look, says that's looking pretty good. So those are the kinds of things that are coming currently in the Juju Charm Store. As always, if you're out there and you work on an open source project and you want to bring software into the Juju Charm Store, we absolutely always love to see new charms. So a lot of these charms, people are like, hey, I wish I could see something like C-File or OwnCloud in the Charm Store. And then people like Jose, they go out and they write it and they put it in there, hopefully with tests. So Charles Butler's letting me know that Chamillo has upstream support reviewing the charm as well with their stamp of approval. So that is very noteworthy. Thank you, Chamillo Upstream. And with that, is there anything else in the state of the store itself that we want to discuss?
Well, what about bundles?
We have them.
I know. We should tell people how awesome they are.
Oh. Okay, so
we have a lot of bundles since the last. I don't think we really published bundles since the last time we had a summit. I can't remember.
Well, we have bundles. We have them. I mean,
like in the GUI deployables, shareable. I don't know if we had that last summit. I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't remember either because I still can't find bundles in the store. So, but a bundle is basically a set of charms assembled together in one go. So if you go to jujucharms.com and then you'll see Hadoop :cluster. That is a Hadoop bundle optimized to be a cluster. And above it I have MongoDB :cluster. So you can take that and drag it. What that is an entire deployment of charms that come together. We have policy and stuff for bundles. They're very similar to charms. We kind of treat them as first class primitives in the store, just like charms. So those are available for you. Anybody can make bundles. So if you go into jujucharms.com or your own Juju GUI and you create a bundle of something, you can export that and then import it. And you can share them with people. So if you want to look at a bundle, I'm going to give you a bundle here in IRC. Sorry about the URL there. But if you go there, that's a starter MongoDB cluster with something like 13 units. How many units? 3 shards, 13 total units. And you can just drag and drop that, and that will deploy an entire MongoDB bundle or cluster for you. These will get more important, especially as the big data charms start to take shape. So when I said that Amir is working on sets of charms for Hadoop and stuff, the way users will consume that will be in bundles. We're not going to ask you, well, unless you want to put together your own Hadoop cluster. Right? What we'll do is we'll give you a set of starter clusters with certain configurations so that you can get started. So think of bundles as like the pre-made Lego kit. Right, when you got it, you put the ship together, and then you're like, oh, it needs bigger engines, and you would swap stuff out. But you get started with a ship put together. That's why I liked it. And then later on, as I figured out how they worked, then I made my own. So it's like that with charms and bundles as well. So we've got a whole bunch of cool bundles. If you just type bundles : in jujucharms.com, it will list all the bundles. Or is it bundle : and Marco put the URL for the list of all the bundles available in the store on the IRC channel. So with that, Chuck has asked James Page the burning question of, is there a simple OpenStack bundle, which we know.
No. There is one. Yeah, I had a bundle going, but I don't think people like ingest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like ingesting my bundle for some reason.
But there was one prior that only had 9 units, and I honestly do not remember who created it, but it was fantastic. It was drag and drop, and the only thing you had to do was configure your block storage on whichever charm that was. I want to say it was Cinder, and you were done. You had OpenStack deployed.
Was that Makio's bundle?
I think so.
Let me look.
When explaining to people how great it is and how quickly you can get started with OpenStack, and then seeing is believing. In 10 minutes, I've got a cluster. That was money.
Yeah, I see your OpenStack on OpenStack. That's the one I use.
Yeah, that's the one Mark uses in stuff as well. So.
Okay. Does that one need any config, or does it just work?
It should just. It should just work, but I can think of edge cases where it wouldn't. So it requires a lot of servers, so it works well on a cloud that has nested virtualization. Kind of limits its use, but it does work. So.
Right. Okay. Cool. And I've got a bunch of simple bundles published. So if you want like a simple media wiki or WordPress ones, we've got some of those out there, and they're really handy. And you can always, of course, deploy bundles with the command line with the Juju deployer tool or Juju quick start. So those are very handy. Worst case scenario, you can always email a copy to somebody, which I've done, which I'm ashamed of. But yeah. All right, so that's pretty much the state of the Juju Charm Store. Unless there are any questions, let's see here. Sparky Geek says that he's addressing Jose's nitpicks as far as the review board. Hopefully, Chuck, you can get that queue down in manageable shape so we can get to review board sooner rather than later. Say yes, I hope.
I did that preemptively. I hope I can live up to that gesture.
He's like, hey, I'm not saying Chuck is saying that he's going to get the review queue zeroed out by Friday. I'm just saying that it's a possibility. And if you're on IRC, Jose's actually deployed the review board charm if you want to check it out. That I haven't used the review board in a long time, but it certainly looks sexy. So we highly encourage you guys out there to bang on those bundles and charms and stuff. and let us know what needs to be fixed. So with that, I believe we have one more session after this on Juju events. So we'll see everyone at the top of the hour, and thank you for coming.